All right. How can we preserve our fitrah in the current economic situation of capitalism and consumerism? Who would like to take this one first? Sheikh, would you like to start?
Bismillah, salatu wassalamu ala Rasulullah. How can we maintain our fitrah? Well, this is the whole idea that we have to understand by taking steps that are applicable to us. Every situation is different. You're talking about economic situation. I can guarantee not everybody in the room is in the same economic situation. So what's applicable and what's possible? We have to stop thinking about doing something and go do something. I think we need to initiate. We need to just step into the light and get a little bit of sun. It's all right. I think there's small steps we can all take. I mentioned, just composting. There's workshops, there's stuff online. You could drown if you wanted in information. But the idea is, if I didn't put that seed in the ground, it's not going to germinate. It's not reading my mind and go plant itself, right? So we have to do something that's applicable to our situation and on the scale that we can do it. Bill Mollison said, you start in your backyard, at your back doorstep. And how much do I grow? Whatever you can control. You just go out and start planting everything and then it's gone into a mess. What are you doing? It's creating more mess. So start at your back doorstep. Start there. Open the door, go outside, and think about what you need to do next. And inshallah you can get something done. Jazakallah khair.
I have nothing to add, mashallah. Yeah, I think there's going to be several panels later that might address this issue more directly, inshallah. Yeah. If we can just also maybe focus the questions on the topics of these two lectures right now, because there will be many other panels and topics later, inshallah.
Do we have a question from the floor? Can we get one of the roaming mics?
Assalamu alaikum. First, I just want to acknowledge the Muslim Youth Association. I'm not a youth, but these things did not exist when I was a youth, so I feel like I'm here so I don't miss out, mashallah. May Allah reward you, inshallah, and make you of benefit to the society at large. My question is for Sheikh Anthony. You touched on this idea of us being caretakers or vicegerents on this planet. On an individual level, and maybe some practical tips, what can we do so that we are fulfilling our role as caretakers, so that we don't stay in this state of infitad? Thank you.
All right, bismillah. I think that's a good question. It's really about what we can do. And I think that helps to focus on, get our hands dirty. I think we have to actually look at what is possible. Just practical steps. I think we have to look at waste streams. This is like just coming from a permaculture idea. We look at aspects and waste streams and things. We sort of look at the framework around us and how it's, what we're given. So we have to go outside and we have to look at what's in our environment. We go in our house, we even just look at the situation in the house, like how many plastic bags are we going through? How many of the containers that aren't being reused? I know I want to save seeds, and I know I'm throwing away jars and containers, so I'll try and use something that's going to actually have a longer lifespan. Not everything has to go in the bin. I think there's a lot of stuff that we can't use, and that's valid, but we have to look at the stuff we can use and what can be useful. And do I need this? I think the idea of having a consumer culture surrounding us in itself is problematic. So if we're not aware of it, we have to become aware. That's the first thing. And then we have to look at what we need. We don't always have to buy the newest or the best. It's good to have things that function. And there was, we one of the guys that did the solar panels up on the farm we were at, he said it's better to buy something of quality than to buy junk and you have to renew it every couple of years or whatever. So we buy something of quality, it's useful, but that it has a need and a purpose. We don't buy things that we don't need. We have to look at that, and the consumerism is really distracting us too much. So I think it's about getting back to nature. Nature has in itself examples and systems that are in place that show us resilience. They show us beauty. They show us the connection. They show us how things work cohesively. They show us how the environment connects. Birds just show up in a tree and they just start eating, or they just start making a nest. They know that this whole place is there, is connected. So we have to sort of get back into nature and show our children how to live in nature, that we're connected. I think this is essentially where we're at with this fitra. And obviously, I've got a busy job, I've got to be out, I've got to be in the office, all this stuff. Yeah, but nature's there. And it's good to at least be aware of it and to have that connection, even if it's for a short, have a tea break or whatever. This is important. Inshallah. Jazakallah khair.
Dr. Samir, do you have anything to add?
I think there's a few more questions. If not,
Sure. Next, I'll take an anonymous question. Dr. Samir, I'll have you answer this one first. If it is now fitrah to believe in one God, how are there children in Muslim families who grow up and decide not to be Muslim and become atheists or polytheists? And how can we avoid this amongst our own children?
Yes, a very important question. And that links to what we were talking about earlier, that it's not enough to recognize that there is a fitrah. That what is this fitraic ecology? How much are we paying attention to the ecological system, i.e. the family, the social, the natural environment in which the fitrah is supposed to unfold? Because the fitrah is a seed. When we're children, it's a seed that needs to be nourished, that needs a certain amount of sunlight, nourishment, care, etc., for it to unfold along a certain type of path of realization. If any of those fitraic intents are frustrated through mad education, through the influence of consumerist culture, through all sorts of different influences, then of course you're going to get a situation where the fitrah is covered over. It's not changed, but it is covered over, it is occluded, it is, let's say, partially polluted, and the child grows up disconnected from their fitrah, disconnected from the possibilities of what the fitrah could become, and you get all sorts of pathologies that we talked about and mentioned. So that's why one of the themes of this conference, Finding the Fitrah, is about now thinking beyond the fitrah as something within me, as the fitrah of something that requires certain conditions, way of life, dispositions, social institutions, communal relations, economic relations that sustain its unfolding. Right? There's no point of saying, I want to plant a seed, and then you scorch the earth, you cut down the trees around it, you cut off all the connections it needs to sustain itself, and you kind of, let's say, you create an environment where no sunlight can come in and there's no water. Right? You planted the seed, but the seed doesn't have the conditions to unfold. Right? And that's what we're witnessing today. And that touches on a very important point, which is, I wish we had, a longer day. My initial suggestion would have a conference like this over a week. I expect everyone to come, but people won't come for a whole week. So we have one day and very limited topics we can cover. But another one is education. It's at the core of everything. And one of the things I wanted to comment on with Sheikh Anthony was mentioning about nature is, how do we recover a relationship, not only a relationship, how do we recover a way of viewing the world, the natural world, as signs and ayat? We read the Quranic verses all the time. سَنُرِيهُمْ آيَاتُنَا فِي الْآفَاقِ وَفِي أَنفُسِهِمْ. Sign, right? But we don't see the world like that. We still see the world as a hunk of matter. A tree is a tree, a rock is a rock. We don't see them as signs. How do we recover a way of viewing the world? How do we sustain this capacity within our children to perceive signs everywhere? Right? Unless we do that, Man, so it needs a lot of radical changes, and education is a very core part of that. Allahu A'lam.
Jazakallah khair. Next, we have a question from the floor. Maybe from the brother's side, perhaps. No? Sisters? No? Yeah. Can we get a mic on sister over there?
Assalamu alaikum. I have a question for Dr. Samir. How do we explain to a non-believer what fitrah is? Like, how do we guide them on the right path?
What the fitrah is?
Yeah, so like if a non-believer who has no clue what fitrah is and doesn't believe in it, how do we explain to them what it is to guide them into Islam?
Okay, I'll try to answer that, but then I'm also going to defer to Sheikh Andrist. The amazing thing about the fitrah, which literally translates as innate or primordial disposition, is that it presupposes that it exists in everyone anyway, right? This is the Isma al-Adamiyya, if you want to call it. It's a quality, it's an attribute of every single human being by virtue of being human being. And when we say Islam is the religion of the fitrah, it means Islam is the religion based on that which comes naturally to us as human beings, i.e., naturally, that it comes naturally to us because that's how we were originated. We were split. We were, brought into this world. We kind of emerged out of that soil of the darkness of non-existence and into the light of existence based on this particular orientation. So in some ways, it's a very easy thing to discuss with, you don't even have to introduce it. In fact, one of the interesting things about many of the discussions surrounding the fitrah is fitraic knowledge, or the fact that I recognize a supreme being, I have to do good towards others, intrinsically recognize beauty in the world. These are things every single person on the planet shares with you. You can't really veer away from it too far. So in that sense, it's the easiest thing to introduce. I would say as a Muslim, when engaging with non-Muslims on this issue, is to start with and discuss fitraic realities as fitraic realities without labeling them. If I were to say, look, I'm a Muslim and I want to introduce you to a Muslim concept, that's it. There's a psychological barrier goes up, they're not interested. Just another perspective of another religion that's maybe, right? We know. Don't start with that. Start with, do we not recognize and share our love for nature? Do we not recognize the beauty that, and the natural unfolding of patterns and rhythms in the world around us? That's where you're on a footing now, where they're connecting with their fitrah to a fitraic reality and recognizing it. And that should be the starting point before we have to give the identitarian politics and labels to things all the time. I've given an example here before of many, and I'm not going to repeat the same example because it'll take me a few minutes to give you the example. But one way of introducing halal meat to the non-Muslims is, we like to eat in the most ethical way, to treat creatures before they die in the most ethical way, to eat creatures that have never been abused, never been mistreated, not killed in front of other animals, and killed with a minimal, if not no pain at all. We like to invoke divine compassion upon which we kill this creature because there's a disposition of compassion that is most worthy of towards this creature, right? That's what halal meat is, right, essentially. If you break it down to its fitraic reality, what is it? It's not a Muslim dietary law. It's the most natural, ethical, spiritual way of treating another creature whose life you're about to take to consume, right? I don't think anyone in their right mind, Muslim, non-Muslim, can deny that and say, that doesn't sound good to me. Right? It meets any RSPCA standards, right? Beyond. Halal meat should be the highest standard in this country. The fact that it isn't, that there's a problem. There are issues of perception, there are issues of practice, there are a wide range of issues in the way in which we're actually doing this. Right? But if anyone was exposed to what the reality of halal is, fitraic way of eating, no one who's not influenced by Islamophobia and all those misconceptions can deny it. And then at the end you can say, this is what we Muslims call halal, by the way. Or not. You don't even have to mention that. As long as they agree with the principle, you're on a common ground. And the fitrah is a common ground. Islam is a common ground. Islam is not a religion like any other religion. It's just a set of rules or principles that are sent and practiced by a particular people in a particular part of the world that always revealed at a particular moment in time. It isn't. That's not what Islam is, at least for us as Muslims, right? It's the natural way of being in attunement and in harmony with the way with what is, right? That's what Islam is. That's why we submit. We submit to the all, the one, Ahad al-Fard al-Samad, right? So I think if we relate to it differently, we can present it differently. But if we still relate to Islam as a political identity, and we get caught up in that kind of us versus them and all that kind of stuff, the fitrah is the best way to do that. Do you want to add anything, Sida?
Yeah, no, I think that's good. Jazakallah khair. I think just the idea of ethical meat, and if you look at these farms in the U.S., Joe Salatin, and like these big proponents, they're pushing the permaculture and the sustainable living, and they're all following that same idea of having a relationship, a connection, having this thing that is ethically sound and actually is wholesome. And this is all from quluman at-tayyibat. This is our food. There's one of the teachers that came here, he said, yeah, but you get these Guantanamo chickens. They've just been abused. And you want to eat that. It's not, you call that halal, but it's just the bare minimum that it was slaughtered in a proper way. It's what about the treatment? And so we go not just to the sort of like this idea of the outcome, right? We look at our aqidah, it's not about theology. It's not a philosophical idea. It's an experience. The Prophet ﷺ experienced Allah, the divine. So then he's showing us, this is our life, this is our religion. It's not something that we just debate. And I think we have to get back into away from the facade of being religious and be into the reality of being religious. And so how do we explain fitrah to a non-Muslim is really about the experience we share and the connection that we're making. So if I'm with a non-Muslim and we're planting trees, then we're experiencing something together. It's not really necessarily just about the discussion. We're talking now, what are we doing together? And to bring benefit and to experience our religion and to show our religion and to share that with other people. I don't know if a discussion on the fitrah is actually going to move people. But if planting and if growing things and if making soil together helps people to get on their fitrah, then I'm all for it. Maybe we can do that. Living. Prophetically. Subhanallah. In the fitrah. Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah khair. I think we have time for one more question, which I'll take anonymously. How can Muslims champion fitraic ecology in our communities? I think we'll close off with that one, inshallah.
For me?
Whoever would like to start.
Bismillah. How can we champion it in our communities? Well, I think we have to get enthusiastic. We have to start. We have to begin. We have to find people who are on the same mindset and that work together. Like, I go to permaculture meetings. I don't go a lot, but it's good that we meet people and we understand this. And then I'm able to bring that energy or these ideas back to people that aren't aware of it in the Muslim community. I don't see this community like one community is here, one community is there. I mean, it's cities, mashallah, it's huge. And there's all this stuff going on, but I don't feel as if I'm in a microcosm of Muslims. When I'm in the Muslim community, I feel like there's a lot going on. And the more I connect to people that are on the same thing, I'm on the same wavelength, then we can sort of raise it up. I think numbers help. And if we bring people into it and we are able to, like, what if the mosques were all growing their own food? What if they were all saving their own water? I bet people would think about making wudu with the tap just fully open. Say, hey, the water's gone. Now you gotta go to the next mosque. So how is it that we're not putting in place? And what is it? I mean, it depends on where you're at, because people who are on the board, if they're not thinking about the environment, they're not going to think about growing things around the mosque, or growing food. It's just like, how do we get more parking spots, right? That big tree that was next to the Kimba Mosque, that's a handicap parking now. It was massive, the grey gum. So it's like, why don't we actually value things? And how are we going to do that? How are we going to champion it in our community? Well, I mean, start with your household. The same thing like the first question is like, you start from your back door. Start where you're at. You have to be sincere about what you're doing. Inshallah, give you tawfiq. And actually put things in place that help. And find people that are on different levels, different strata in society. This is another important aspect. And there's probably people that can speak to this a lot better than I can. But it's about really diversifying the ranks, and we have to just get everybody involved that we can. Inshallah. I don't know if you want to help.
Dr. Smith, you have anything to add? Khair, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. I think we'll end the first Q&A panel session there. Jazakallah khair for all those amazing questions.